The Schiller Institute will hold an international online conference on Saturday, February 19th to reassert the very same declaration that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought by the 5 nuclear powers and permanent members of the UN Security Council, which they affirmed in a joint statement on January 3rd of this year. The conference will also present a solution to the current crisis: the establishment of a new security architecture that guarantees all nations the right to security and to economic and cultural development. To do that, a dialogue about the causes and the cures of this current crisis is urgent. In the last week of January, the U.S. Strategic Command launched the Global Lightning exercise to test the readiness of U.S. nuclear forces under a nuclear war plan, operative since 2019, based on the assumption that the United States and NATO would be able to survive a nuclear first strike by Russia or China, then retaliate, absorb further attacks, retaliate again, etc., in an ongoing military confrontation. President Putin had announced Russia's new nuclear weapon systems in 2018, including the avant-garde hypersonic missile, the hypersonic cruise missile Kinzhal, nuclear-powered cruise missiles, fast underwater drones, and laser weapons. This was an enormous shock to the Western military establishment. But President Putin was responding to the 2004 to 2014 color revolutions and so-called humanitarian wars against all governments who opposed having their own nations looted. The $5 billion spent on NGOs in Ukraine alone is well known, which eventually became the Nazi Maidan coup of February 2014, on Russia's very doorstep. On December 17, 2021, Putin presented 2 draft treaties to the United States and NATO, insisting that there be no further eastward expansion of NATO, especially into Ukraine, and no offensive weapon systems stationed on Russia's borders.
Not 1 inch to the east is what we were told in the 1990s. And what happened? We were duped. We were brazenly duped. There were 5 waves of NATO expansion. And now these missile systems are appearing in Poland and Romania. That's what we're talking about.
Given the lack of a serious response so far, Putin has announced military technical measures in the event of a definitive refusal. One American expert has written that he thinks Russia's military technical measures may include deploying sea-launched hypersonic Zircon nuclear-armed cruise missiles off the coast of Washington, D.C., which Russian experts have previously said could destroy the American capital so quickly the president would not have time to board Air Force One to escape. More and more people are waking up to the fact that there are only the proverbial 100 seconds before midnight left on the Doomsday clock. To stop the clock, the causes of war must be addressed. First, the hyperinflationary final phase of the transatlantic neoliberal financial system, and second, the deadly fantasy of the financial establishment in the City of London, Wall Street, and Silicon Valley that they can impose their rules-based order in their eternal unipolar world. The root causes trace back to the shift of August 1971, prophetically recognized by Lyndon LaRouche, when Nixon effectively ended the Bretton Woods system by abolishing fixed exchange rates and thus paving the way for speculative profit maximization. This caused the increasing shift away from investments in the productive physical economy and towards speculation in increasingly exotic derivative-based financial products, and now shifting the trillions into the Green New Deal. From the standpoint of the physical economy, this policy of driving investments into industries with the lowest possible energy flux density ultimately represents an extensive destruction of capital, just like investments in the military production of weapon systems. Far too many people are confused about monetary values as distinct from real wealth. They have bought into the illusion that the share values of listed companies say something about the productivity of the economy, which they do not. The silence of the same circles on the largest of all humanitarian catastrophes, triggered by Western sanctions in Afghanistan, in which 1 million children are starving and a total of 24 million people are at risk of dying this winter, seals their complete discrediting. Some more level-headed voices have spoken out in favor of a new pan-European security architecture including Russia and Ukraine in a new Helsinki Agreement. However, in view of the complexity of the world situation, the threat to world peace affecting all states, and the indivisibility of the security of all, it is necessary to go beyond Helsinki and create an international security architecture that encompasses the security interests of all states on Earth. Just such a proposal is elaborated in a recent article published by the Schiller Institute founder Helge Zeppler-Rouge, 100 Seconds to Midnight on the Doomsday Clock. We need a new security architecture. This architecture must be based on the principles of the Peace of Westphalia, i.e., it must guarantee the interests of all states and, above all, their right to economic and cultural development. The maintenance of world peace requires a total and definitive renunciation of Malthusian politics and requires universal access to the achievements of scientific and technological advance for all nations. This new order, the prerequisite for the survival of the human species, requires a new paradigm of thought that must draw upon the best classical traditions of all cultures at the highest humanistic level. Who can deny that we are an indivisible community of destiny? Either we let the clock tick away until the last of the 100 seconds has struck, and then there will be no one left to comment on the result. Or we can remember that we are the only known creative species in the universe and shape our common future together.